We are 2 Shabbatot before Pesach. There is a great tradition that on the Shabbat before Pesach, that the rabbi would speak then, and then of course on Yom Kippur, and not the rest of the year. And I know that there are people who would enjoy that, in every congregation, and every rabbi too. And on those days, the rabbis would extol for hours and hours, especially before Pesach, to let you know all of the things you needed to do in order to keep the Pesach. I'm going to say that we have wonderful Passover guides that we have time to learn during the week, that I have an email if you have any questions, and a phone number you could if I have any questions. If you have any questions, if I have questions, I can ask you. If you have any questions, you can ask me. And so I don't need to speak for hours. But since I won't be here for Shabbat, we're going to do a little learning about Pesach today. I want to start with a story. There was a time when Rabbi Israel ben Eliezer, who is the great Baal Shem Tov, you may have heard of him, would see that danger was approaching his people, and he would go to a special place in the forest. You may have heard this story. And he would light a sacred fire, and he would say a special prayer, and a miracle would happen, and the danger would be averted. And when his disciple, Dovber ben Avraham, the Maggid of Mezrich, would see danger approaching, he would go to that same special place in the forest, and he would pray, Rabbona ha'olam, Master of the universe, I no longer know how to light the special fire, but I will say the special prayer, and that must be sufficient. And a miracle would happen, and the danger would be averted. And when his disciple, Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sassov, would see danger, he would go to the place in the forest, and he would say, Hashem, God, Melech HaOlam, I'm here in the forest, but I can't light the fire, and I don't know the prayer, so this must be sufficient. And again, it was. And then when Rabbi Israel of Rizin had to avert a danger, he would sit at home in his chair with his head in his hands, and he would say, I no longer know the special place in the forest. I can't light the fire. I don't even know the prayer, but I can tell the story, and that must be enough. And this is something we do on all of our Chagim, but especially on Pesach. We tell the story. We tell the story, V'higadata levincha b'yom hahu, and you will tell it to your children on this day. So I wanted to share with you a little extra that you can tell to your children. And by the way, children does not mean children, but children and children and children. My 2 sons are here today. That's a miracle. There's your miracle. And they're definitely not here. They are here. We still teach them and tell them. And I hope they will agree that you can always learn something from your parents. Yes. Jesse's my favorite this morning. So, it is not, I'm going to say something possibly blasphemous. It is not 100% necessary to read every word in your Haggadah. Especially if you have the red and yellow one that I think was given at Sinai. You do not have to read every single word. But the beginning of every Haggadah has those wonderful steps. We generally sing them. Most people sing them. Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas. All of that. If you do all the steps, you have fulfilled the mitzvah of Seder. And the important thing is that you tell your children. So speak from your heart. So on the flip side of the song sheet, you will see, and I started this with my class on Wednesday, but you will see some pictures of different images of the 4 children. And the first one you can see is very simple. It's just stick figures. The art that we have in our Haggadot talks to us. These artists who create these beautiful images, they are not reading the Haggadah word for word, the same Haggadah every single year. They are recreating and retelling and putting themselves into it. And so we have at the top by Otto Geismar the simple lines reflecting the attitudes of his time and the art of his time. And you can see what he thinks of the Chacham and the Rasha and the Tam, the simple son, who's just playing with things at the table. And if you were to walk into my house on Pesach and you're invited, when my mother was alive, she would say, "How many people are coming for Pesach?" And I would say, "I don't know, I'll see how many show up." Because there were always extras who would come. There is always room in the house, and there is always room in our hearts. There may not be a seat at the table, but there's room in the house. So you can see that Tom is playing with something, maybe a spoon, maybe the zroa, maybe the shank bone, but our table is filled with toys, and the adults are playing with them more than the children ever did. And then I want to especially look at the books, and it's unclear what order these books are in. And you may talk, I'm happy to talk after, I don't want to take too much time from our service, about what I think the books stand for and what others think the books stand for. And we have the attitudes towards the Zionist dream. I want to especially look at that one. In the top right corner is the Chacham. He is a chayil, he is a chalutz. He works the land and cares about our ritual traditions while caring about the modern state. The Rasha is an entrepreneur who has put the concerns of his pocketbook ahead of the concerns of the state. The Tam, if you look, you can see a boat. And these are the people who have just gotten off the boat and maybe haven't fully absorbed the beautiful, rich idea that is our modern state. And the one who can't even ask a question is just here portrayed as a simple chassid. I will be available at Kiddush and during lunch if anyone would like to talk about the rest of them. But I want to also look on the other side of that page, below the song. You'll see a recipe. It's a recipe that is probably unlike the recipe that most of you do for charoset. It has cayenne pepper, ginger, coriander. It is a Yemenite charoset, and this is what Rav Shon calls myth destruction 101. The charoset gets its meaning well after it made its way to the table. The charoset was originally your appetizer, one of your appetizers. It was something sweet, or in this case, wonderfully flavorful, to have before you got to dinner as you sat and you learned, so you would not be asking the most popular of the questions, which is, when do we eat? We eat when we say karpas, and while we have that karpas and we danced a little like the parsley, you may eat even an entire meal of vegetables, of anything that has the bracha, berei pri ha'adama, and I hope that you will, and you will eat so that you are not hungry, so that you can devote yourself to learning and to discussion about what happened, why it's important that we tell this story, and how does the story of Pesach and our slavery and our redemption matter to us today. The reason the Yemenite community has cayenne in its charoset, The reason that the Talmud says you may use vinegar instead of salt water. The reason we use salt water, which should be heavy with salt, was that when you dipped your raw vegetable into this thing, whether it be charoset, whether it be the salt water, whether it be vinegar, it killed bacteria and it killed bugs, and it was a health measure. And then later, as we said, we have to ask a question at our Seder. The children began saying, "What is this? Why are we eating that? Because we don't eat that the rest of the year." And people came up with their own reasons, that it's the mortar with which the bricks were stuck together, or maybe what looks like the straw and the mortar together making the bricks. And every charoset I've ever seen turns that brown, some shade of brown that looks like mortar. So it works. But the meaning comes after, and that's okay. At our table, we have multiple charosets. I shared some of those recipes last week. I shared them with my class on Monday night. There are ways to bring in today. It's not just about what happened in Egypt with God redeeming us, but what is happening in our lives today, what is happening to our community today. I, along with Rav Sean, with Jesse, with Gabrielle, and with Karen, who hasn't come home yet, we wish you all a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. May all those in captivity, may all those who are enslaved in any way, soon attain freedom. Shabbat Shalom.